Hello, welcome to the big show, everyone. We got arrests going on in Minnesota. About time, right? Pam Bondi coming through with at least 3 of them right now. Gosh darn it, does that say 2? We mean 3 on the lower third there because it just happened. Ladies and gentlemen, the 3rd arrest out of that church protesting group. And by the way, we got more to come.
Enough is enough. I am a reverend on top of being a lawyer and an activist.
Well, I can tell you this, she is not much of a lawyer, right? We talked about that yesterday. Terrible lawyer because she really doesn't understand what's at stake. And now she's been arrested. Meanwhile, this guy.
So you know Pam Bondi, you want to come and arrest me? You want to come and give me charges? So be it.
Okay, well, she came for you. She got you. You're arrested too. It all comes as we get a big warning there for The View and Jimmy Kimmel and all the late night shows, Colbert, the other guy on NBC, who's from New Hampshire. I can't remember his name. He does like the late show. Oh, Seth Meyers, all of them, right? They're all under fire right now because Brendan Carr's not messing around. He runs Trump's FCC, and there's this little thing called equal time rule, which means you cannot, in a show like The View or in a show like Kimmel, just go as crazy as they've been going. Right? With 25th Amendment and everything. I knew this was coming yesterday. Remember when I played you this clip and I was like, hey, where's the FCC? Well, the FCC is here, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm not sure.
I don't know if we moved on to another piece.
Amendment. Right. It's time.
25th Amendment is time. It's time.
Yeah. I'm telling you. Like, they're going to have to do some really different things at ABC News. Because you cannot have programs like that on the air anymore. And it's high time because, for goodness sakes, 99.999% of the time, they're just bashing Trump. And he said, and his FCC has said, enough is enough. You're on public airwaves, okay? Public. We control them. We own them. All right, by the way, California is in big trouble right now. You thought Minnesota was bad. Wait till I take you to California. We're going to get into that. And you want to know who the biggest loser of all at Davos was this year? One Sparkle Ken. Sparkle Beach Ken. That would be Gavin Newsom. Leave it to the Treasury Secretary to come up with that one. Welcome to the show, everyone. Great to have you here. Make sure you subscribe, share, like. Do me this other favor. Make sure that you are subscribed for sure. Because some of you have been telling me in the comments, and I appreciate you letting me in on this. Brenda, I think you mentioned something yesterday. You're getting unsubscribed for some reason. So we don't want that happening. We want to keep that 1.2 million, almost 1.2 million, and going strong. So tell your friends, make a comment, join the conversation. While we're at it, keep in mind the market ended the day yet again higher. Please go check out my 76research.com. That's my company that I own. And we have some very, very good ideas there for you on how to invest right about now. There's 3 different portfolios. I really encourage you to check those out. But if nothing else, use my code word dollar, DOLLAR, to get the 76 report, 76research.com. All right, everyone, we got some arrests going down, 3 of them right here. I have to change the lower third. It looks like this was done a little bit earlier in the day, shall we say. We have 3 arrests, ladies and gentlemen, that have happened as a result of that church protest. You know, they thought they were so cute. They thought that this was the way to do it, and they had Don Lemon escorting them in right there by their side to kind of condone it all. Wow. Was that a mistake? Mistake for him and mistake for them to ever do this. And again, you're not dealing with the brightest bulbs here.
So you know Pam Bondi, you want to come and arrest me? You want to come and give me charges? So be it.
Yeah, well, she's come. She's coming. She's taking you away. What do you know? Okay, you're going to wind up in jail for a while. 40 years, probably. Remember the women that were grandmothers that were praying and I guess protesting, therefore praying, whatever, intimidating. Somebody thought they were intimidating the people at the abortion clinic. Well, they got 40 years. Yeah. So, look, guys, I don't know what to tell you, but you're in for it. You're in for it pretty darn good. Here's this woman. I can never say her name.
Tell us why you're doing this.
This is Operation Pull Up, more of a clandestine operation. We show up somewhere that is a key location. They don't expect us to come there. And then we disrupt business as usual. So that's what we're about to go do right now. Demanding justice for Renee Good and letting them know that this will not stand. They cannot pretend to be a house of God while harboring someone who is directing ICE agents to wreak havoc upon our community and who killed Renee Good, who almost killed a 6-month-old baby. Enough is enough. I am a reverend on top of being a lawyer and an activist, so I come here in the power of the Almighty God.
Well, the power of the almighty government's coming down pretty hard on you, lady. Yeah, Nikema, she's going to be going to the slammer for like 40 years. Some lawyer she is, right? And then you had that nut job, William Kelly, total nut job.
Yesterday, I went into a church with Nikema Armstrong and I protested these white supremacists. A pastor of the church is a ICE leader in the city.
As you can see, all these pretend Christians, all these comfortable white people who are living lavish, comfortable lives. So you know, Pam Bondi, you want to come and arrest me? You want to come and give me charges? So be it.
Yeah, okay, well, that's exactly what she did. Pam Bondi saying, update, William Kelly is now in custody. Our nation was settled and founded by people fleeing religious persecution. Religious freedom is the bedrock of this country. We will protect our pastors. We will protect our churches. We will protect Americans of faith. And dun-dun-dun, William Kelly, you and Nikema and the rest of you. Oh, this lady, she's actually a school board member, Chantal Louise Allen. She was also arrested. This woman's on the school board out there in the Minneapolis area. Goodness gracious. Okay, she's also a clerk who works in one of the local government offices. Lovely. You can see her. They circled her. This is this great Twitter account, Libs of TikTok, and they circled her in the video. So she was one of the protesters that you saw out there that was being, partaking in the whole thing. They get a whole list because, by the way, I think it was Nikema who, brilliant lawyer that she is, decided to go post on social media a big thank you to everybody that was there, naming them all. I mean, you can't, I think they wanted this, for goodness sakes, but you shouldn't want this because this is actually not a good thing for your cause. I mean, Americans do not take kindly to this. They don't like you just busting down the doors of the church. She tries to say now that, that's not really what we did, but there's a lot of it on tape, right? We saw her on tape and she's talking about how they do this in a clandestine way and they just show up on locations. It just so happens, though, you can't do it in a church. Here's Pammy.
Whether it's a public official, whether it's a law enforcement officer, no one is above the law in this state or in this country. And people will be held accountable. This state is a mess right now. We've seen the chaos, and it's constant. And our men and women in law enforcement deserve to be safe. And that's what we're going to do in Minnesota.
Okay, so yes, they are coming through with the arrests, but there's one arrest in particular that I think a lot of people are questioning, and that would be the arrest of one Don Lemon. In other words, what's going to happen with him? We've been making the point that he really needs a good lawyer because he's kind of in a bit of a bad situation. I mean, when even the president is weighing in on you.
They're patriots, and they have to be abused by guys like Don Lemon, who's a loser, lightweight. I saw him the way he walked in that church. It was terrible. I have such respect for that pastor. He was so calm. He was so nice. He was just accosted. What they did in that church was horrible yesterday.
Yes, horrible, horrible. And so it's sort of shocking that we have just learned that they are not moving forward as of yet. As of yet. They can go back with more, but this, unfortunately, for me, kind of speaks to she didn't get it right the first time, okay? I have this much patience right now with Pam Bondi, like this much. And to me, you don't go forward and present the information for the arrest until you actually have everything that you need. And so part of what we're going to do today is we're going to make sure she has everything that she needs. We're going to help her do the homework assignment, so to speak, because whatever's going on, like they're not putting enough information before the judge. And granted, I get it. You can tell me like the judge is a political bias and this, that, and the other. It may be the case, but I would say that if you have the proper information there that you're offering forward, you should be able to get an arrest here. The judge is currently rejecting Justice Department's initial attempt. So that's critical, the initial attempt to bring charges against one Don Lemon. Now, why is this of such concern? Like, why is he not just a journalist there? In fact, when I first saw this story unfold on Monday and we were talking about it, I was like, well, maybe he's got some cover as a journalist, right? And as somebody who has covered protests, although they've always been sanctioned and out in the open and legal protests, a part of me is like, okay, well, he's just there covering the news. But the difference here, and I think this is really important to remember, is the premeditation of all this. Because again, you saw him there with the woman who organized it all. Remember this?
So Pam Bondi, you want to come and arrest me?
No, not that one. Let's go back again. There was the woman, Nakima, who organized it all, and she was telling him beforehand, this is going to happen. So it's clear that he was part of this beforehand. And so if you know that there's a crime that's about to take place, like, why don't you call that in?
Tell us why you're doing this.
This is Operation Pull Up, more of a clandestine operation. We show up somewhere that is a key location. They don't expect us to come there. And then we disrupt business as usual. So that's what we're about to go do right now.
Okay, and so he was with her beforehand, and I think that's a critical distinction. He's trying to say, no, I'm just being a journalist here. I'm just doing my job. It's called journalism. It's an act of journalism. He sounds terrified, actually, in this one clip I'm going to show you. It's very clear he needs a very, very good lawyer, and I don't think he's out of the woods yet. So again, they're rejecting the initial attempt. Perhaps Pam Bondi needs to actually do a little bit more due diligence in terms of how she's preparing things for the judge so that we don't get this spit back in her face again. But I would say that he sounds scared.
The MAGA administration and the fake news MAGAs are losing their mind over something that's not even true. So let me just make it clear, because this assistant attorney general, I don't know, what's her name? Something Hammett, Dillon or whatever.
He knows her name. He's doing that deliberately.
So I had no affiliation to that organization. I didn't even know they were going to this church until we followed them there. We were there chronicling protests. Once the protest started in the church, we did an act of journalism, which was report on it and
act of journalism, love it.
Talk to the people who were involved, which included the pastor, members of the church, and members of the organization. That's it. It's called journalism. First Amendment, all that stuff. For all of you people who believe in the First Amendment, absolutist, there you go. So why don't you talk to the actual person who is in charge of the organization and whose idea it was to have the protests at the church before you start blaming me for stuff for which you have no idea.
Okay, so that would be Nakima. They got her. She's arrested. Then we get the school board member, right? She's been arrested. You get the nut job who terrorized everyone, Kelly, who's been arrested. And now we've got Don Lemon not yet being arrested. The judge turning that down. But as Harmeet says, here's the argument. And listen to this very carefully. And Pam Bondi, whatever you're listening, you listen to this very carefully.
So this position of his is so stupid, I was trying to figure out how to put it in layman's terms. Imagine you have a bank robbery that's being planned by a number of criminals. They're crossing state lines, they're using the wires, and then a podcaster says, well, let me embed myself in here and come along for the ride and live stream the crime. That would not be protected by the First Amendment. And so it is a crime to disrupt and harass and make people in a church or any house of worship feel unsafe in this country. And when you're part of that planning and show up and ride along and laugh outside about and make commentary outside about how disrupting and putting people in fear is literally part of protest and part of the plan, we are not reaching conclusions now. Of course, everybody is entitled to the presumption of innocence. But if I were giving advice to a journalist about this, which I have done in the past, I would say do not participate in a crime actively.
Yeah. Like, that's kind of a no-brainer, right? And I'm sure she probably has. Don't forget, she was a Fox News contributor. I'm sure that she has given advice. And what distinguishes this is that they were trespassing on private property. I mean, that was what had me from the beginning. I was like, wait a second, why are you going in on private property? That's kind of reckless. So you've got private property that they're breaking into and then harassing and kind of tormenting these people. Here's Don Lemon with the pastor.
What do you think of this? I mean, this is unacceptable. It's shameful. It's shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship.
But there were folks who will say,
I have to take care of my flock.
okay, but listen, we live there's a constitution and a First Amendment to freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest.
Not there, buddy, not there.
We're here to worship Jesus because that's the hope of these cities. That's the hope of the world is Jesus Christ.
I want to be very respectful. Please don't push me, though.
We're here to worship Jesus. Yes. That's why we're here.
Did you hear that? He's like, please don't push me. He wasn't pushing you, Donnie. Lemon. Donnie Lemon. I'm sure he'd like that. It kind of goes with this whole she attitude. So Donnie Lemon is in big trouble still. So they didn't get the first time around. But again, you heard Harmeet. What she's saying is it doesn't mean that you can embed yourself when you have knowledge ahead of time of that crime transpiring. So we have this on tape. I mean, they can go and get the tapes and try and get the time log. Maybe that will help the judge. And then you got him talking about and this is the new form of protesting. What an idiot. Like, he thinks it's okay to actually trespass onto private property. I mean, we can get into the FACE Act, we can get into the Klan Act, all of these things, right, which are going to come into play. And that is actually going to add to the sentence that they're going to get. That's why you could be looking at something like 40 years for these people. But the fact that he sits there and thinks it's A-okay to bust into somebody's private sanctuary where they are worshiping Jesus and say, okay, here we are, and we're going to cause a ruckus. Like, you can't do it. It would be like somebody saying, okay, I'm going to bust into your home. I'm going to bust into your studio, Trish. Guess what? My studio is private. My home is private. My office is private. You just can't do this, Donnie Lemon.
This is the beginning of what's going to happen here. When you violate people's due process, when you pull people off the street and you start dragging them and hurting them and not abiding by the Constitution, when you start doing all of that, people get upset and angry. And if you remember what the Civil Rights Movement was about, the Civil Rights Movement was about these very kinds of protests. And for some reason, in our modern era, people think that in order to have protests, you got to be, cordoned off to a certain area and, what time you can protest.
Yeah.
There's nothing in the Constitution that tells you what time you can protest. You can protest at any time. That's the whole point of it, is to disrupt, it's to make uncomfortable. And that's what they're doing. And that's what I believe when I say everyone has to be willing to sacrifice something. You have to make people uncomfortable in these times. If you see how uncomfortably and how harsh people are being treated on the streets, you have to be willing to go into places and disrupt and make...
He's basically telling everybody to go break the law. Okay, so he's egging them on. So I don't know why he wouldn't be treated as a co-conspirator in this case. And I think that they're going to go back at it and they're going to try, which is why he's nervous. But you heard what Harmeet said, and she's a good civil rights attorney. Pam is mad. Pam is definitely very, very mad. You can see what she said here. Let me put out her statement. She made a statement to CNN and to CBS. This initial attempt is being rejected, and they are reporting that the Attorney General, it's actually not her statement, I guess. It's a person familiar with the matter. The Attorney General is enraged at the magistrate's decision, the magistrate judge's decision. A person familiar with the matter said Attorney General Pam Bondi has been on the ground in Minnesota for 2 days meeting with federal prosecutors in the state. So it's getting me back to this one, guys. Is she really the right one for the job? I hate to say it, but it's just like she keeps on freaking striking out over and over and over again. And I'm sorry, she doesn't have the right pedigree for this. I'm sorry. She's a politician from Florida, okay? She looks good on camera. She can talk nicely. She does love the president, great. But she can't do her job. She's not a good enough attorney. She cannot manage a team of attorneys. She's out there trying to hog up all the attention and, get the glow of the moment. She goes to Minnesota. Let Harmeet go to Minnesota, please. Harmeet Dillon, who actually understands this stuff. Maybe you send Harmeet. Maybe actually, I don't know. Maybe Harmeet is the one that needs to take over at the DOJ. You need something. You need something fast, okay, President Trump? This woman is not capable. She just strikes out over and over and over again. And so enough is enough is enough. Okay, forgive me, we were having a little camera mishap right there, but you can see that the base is furious. Just take a look at this. People are like, what the heck? You have an activist judge blocking the DOJ from bringing charges against Don Lemon. He cannot be allowed to skirt accountability, everything proving his guilt on camera, and the entire world knows it. What an embarrassment. Fix this now, Pam Bondi. Fix this now. But, is she going to be able to fix anything? I don't know if she can, fix. I mean, if you couldn't get Comey and you couldn't get Letitia James, I think that, sometimes you just have to come to reality here. And our expectations on this woman may just be way too much. Here's Nicki Minaj. Okay, Nicki Minaj tweeting this one out. Don Lemon is disgusting. We're taking out her bad words. How dare you? I want that thug in jail. He would never do that to any other religion. Lock him up. People have had it. You saw what the president had to say on one Don Lemon, and we are very clear on this, that there is just, not a lot of patience for one Pam Bondi right now. Just not a lot of patience. We gave her a year, okay? Well, not quite a year. I think she came in February. So she's coming up on a year, and we just don't have anything to show for it, and that's of concern. Here, we look at the FACE Act, for example. The FACE Act is a federal law. By the way, so you have them on trespassing, you have them on disorderly conduct, you have them on a violation of privacy, and then you can layer in some of these things. This is how you're going to get to 40 years. Something like the FACE Act. The FACE Act is a federal law passed in 1994 that makes it illegal to use force, threats of force, or physical obstruction to interfere with access to reproductive health services. That's why those three grandmas got the 40 years. The provision of those services, or people exercising their religion at places of worship. Okay, so that just doesn't apply only to the mosques. That applies to the Christian churches as well, all right? So this law got put into place in 1994, and this is what is going to be used to go and put these people away for quite some time. You've got the FACE Act, you got trespassing, you got privacy violations, you've got noise and disobedience, and then you have something else, which is interesting. And I wasn't as familiar with this, but apparently you can also go after them with the Klan Act, thereby adding even more time to what they're going to do in jail.
In other cases, the Biden DOJ used the Klan Act conspiracy charges tacked on to the FACE Act in the case of protests outside abortion clinics to bring much longer sentences. So there are a number of tools available to us. The Klan Act is one of the most important federal civil rights statutes, and it goes back to the time when President Lincoln emancipated the slaves, and yet the southern states, Dixiecrats mainly, were refusing to give them equal rights. And in fact, that you had sheriffs and you had law enforcement harassing the newly freed slaves. So the Klan Act is a law that makes it illegal to violate their civil rights, to get together and conspire to violate the civil rights. It is often used against law enforcement, but is now used against others as well. So whenever anyone conspires to violate the protected civil rights of American citizens, the Klan Act can be used to bring a conspiracy charge. We, in the federal law enforcement parlance, call this 241 and 242 civil and criminal conspiracies.
Wow. Okay. So, there was a conspiracy there. And if you think about the tape that we have, thank you, Donnie. Lemon. Maybe you'll get to go hang out with La Monica. You could ask to be on the female side of the prison, right? I'm teasing. But it's really disturbing. And I do think that he's going to face, at some point, the reality of an arrest. So they didn't get it first time around. I think that Pam ought to bring Harmeet there to help, because Harmeet actually knows this stuff, and they really need to prepare this well for the judge. Make sure you subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. Coming up, we got to get to Jack Smith. Oh my goodness. I'm glad we have some smart people in Congress. Brandon Gill, representative from Texas, just destroyed Jack Smith over this whole tolling thing, aka spying on U.S. senators. They were gathering the metadata on their phones. Plus, California, watch out. I mean, if we thought it was bad in Minnesota, you're talking about $70, $80 billion missing in the state of California. Whoa. No wonder Gavin Newsom is freaking out right about now. I mean, you'd be freaking out too, right? Given that Waltz got a subpoena from the FBI, given that Ellison got a subpoena from the FBI, given that Ilhan Omar is under congressional investigation by the Treasury Department is looking at her too. Watch out, watch out. And they're coming for none other than Gavin Newsom and the state of California. This is going to be good. Oh, wow. But before we get to that, I want to tell you about one of our new sponsors here on the show. This is really interesting. I'm trying to make myself as small as I can so that you can really see this screen. This is a company called Quo. Q-U-O. Okay, so remember that. Quo.com/REGAN, REGAN Regan for 20% off your first 6 months with Quo. You know, it's really important to think about, especially this time of year. It's a new year. It's a time for new systems and new opportunities. I mean, it's a time when you want to look at the messier parts of your business. I mean, I certainly, I get some messy parts of my business too, right? And think, hey, there's got to be a better way to do this. Well, one of the great ways to be able to handle your communications in your business, one of the quickest, easiest upgrades you can make is by actually using this company, Quo. Q-U-O, that's how you spell it. It's a smarter way to run your business communications. Quo works wherever you are. Right from the app on your phone, it lets you keep an existing number and you can add new numbers, teammates in minutes. You can sync your CRM. You can rely on seamless routing and call flows of your business scales. Your entire team can handle calls and texts from one shared number. No more missed messages or disconnected conversations. Everyone's there on the full thread. You can see in this video that I'm showing you, it's pretty amazing, making replies faster and customers feel genuinely cared for. It's nice, you know, all these technological shifts that we're embracing right now in society. So I'll tell you what, go to quo.com if you're interested in checking this out. It's a chance for you to make sure that you're not missing any opportunity. You're not missing any customer. You can try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/REGAN. That's Quo, QUO.com/REGAN Regan. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. All right, so we've got arrests being made there in Minnesota, and we have $70+ billion still missing in the state of California. I mean, this is unbelievable. They're zeroing in. The feds are zeroing in on California because that may be the biggest one of all. I mean, 19 billion, some estimates 9 billion, 9 to 19 billion missing, gone in the state of Minnesota. But what about other places? We've talked about Ohio, we've talked about Washington State, and Treasury Secretary Bessent wants you to know he's focused on one thing, and that would be California.
Trump administration is coming to California. We are going to crack down on waste, fraud, and abuse.
Do you hear that? Because there's a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse, apparently, in the state of California. I want to go to Nick Shirley. You know, he's the YouTuber that uncovered the Leering Center in Minnesota. And he testified yesterday afternoon on Capitol Hill about all the fraud that he had uncovered. And one congressman from California was very interested in what might be coming out of California.
Correct.
What makes you think that?
Well, now you're seeing, since I've posted that video, lots of other people have started to go to other locations, for instance, in Ohio or in Maine or in California. They're also seeing the similar fraud take place in other daycares, for instance, in a lot of other locations.
Yeah, I have a particular interest in California, being from that state, and we know that there's been a lot of fraud. There was $32.6 billion that's been confirmed in unemployment insurance fraud. There's 1.2 million fraudulent community college applications. Have you gotten any sense, or have you seen any signs there that sort of are similar to what aroused your suspicions in Minnesota?
Yeah, and fraud in California might be worse than the fraud in Minnesota.
What makes you say that?
Well, $24 billion went missing for homelessness. They've been trying to build this train for years, yet there's hardly anything to prove for that. Fires.
Yeah, those are good points. So you look at let's run through a couple of those, because I mentioned the areas where we have confirmed fraud, but then you also have these areas where you have so much spending, and then we look at what results from that spending, and there's nothing. So $24 billion in homelessness, and yet the homeless population went up. and a state audit found that they couldn't even figure out where the money went or what the outcomes linked to that spending were. Is that something that is kind of a red flag for you?
Yeah, it's a major red flag, and you don't even have to be smart to be able to know that that's a red flag.
Well, unfortunately, our state legislators haven't managed to figure that out, or at least the governor hasn't. So what are you saying about him?
They're not smart. No, but yeah, I mean, it's so obvious, and that's what we saw in Minnesota is how complicit the government has been in enabling this fraud to happen. Quality Learning Center had over 90 violations, yet they continue to give that daycare $1.9 million.
Shocking, right? And yet there may be much more of that in the state of California. I mean, there's a great example. I want to show you this other social media influencer that took a page out of Nick Shirley's book. You heard Nick say, well, everybody's going to start doing this now because they're trying to uncover this fraud themselves. And so we have a lot of citizen journalists that are pounding the pavement trying to get answers. Check this out. Another independent journalist hitting the pavement. He goes to a Los Angeles business center where apparently everybody's in the hospice business, but nobody's there.
Look at what this is uncovering. Hospice, home health care, Allegiance Home Health, Dignity Care Hospice, Moonlight Hospice Incorporated, Thousand Oaks Hospice Incorporated. Some of those don't even have signs on their doors. And I walk 7 more feet, and what do we have? Sheltering Arms Hospice Care. It's absolutely ridiculous.
I like this citizen journalist thing. Yeah, I really do. So I think we're going to see much more out in California, which is one of the reasons why Gavin Newsom is so nervous right now. He's so nervous. So what does he do? He takes a page out of Ilhan Omar's book. Ilhan Omar is panicking because the Treasury Secretary is like, hey, Ilhan, we're going to find you. And we got all kinds of things in place, and I'm pretty sure y'all going to rat out each other because, there's a monetary incentive. They get all this money that's been pouring out of Minneapolis. They're tracking $700 billion that went over to Dubai and other places. They think the Hawala network was involved, which means, somebody's taking something off the top for the quote-unquote cause. They said Minneapolis may be the biggest funder of al-Shabaab there is. Wow. Okay, so Treasury's all over this. And guess what? Treasury, you just heard him. Treasury Secretary said, hey, I'm coming for you, Gavin. And so Gavin's kind of freaking out. And what does he do? He does exactly what Ilhan Omar does. He starts accusing them of racism. Wow. And then goes so far as to say that Dan Bonvino, who is the head of the Customs Patrol situation, the head guy at ICE, he tries to equate him with, I'm sorry, this is just unbelievable. I can't even believe I'm saying this, a Nazi. I'm getting kind of sick of it, okay? Really, really sick of these people going to the worst possible place in modern history that you can ever think of. And they're trying to accuse people that are trying to keep our community safe of this. This is wrong. It's wrong. It's disgusting. But you know what? What can you expect from Sparkle Beach Ken?
In the state of California, masked men. Guy Greg Bovino, dressed up. It's as if he literally went on eBay and purchased SS garb. Greg Bovino, secret police, private army.
All right. That's just really disgusting, okay? And I know you're probably scared, Gavin, Kendall, Sparkle Beach, Kendall. We're going to play that for you. It's great, right? I know you're scared because you have so much ambition. It's pretty evident, okay? So much ambition. I mean, I think you really want to be president. I mean, I was looking at some of your mannerisms and you almost adopted some of the Joe Biden-esque mannerisms, which shocks me because those wouldn't be the mannerisms I would adopt. I mean, unless you're actually declining that fast, kind of young to be going downhill. But I get that you're ambitious. But that's not where you go, okay? Because it was your party. It was one Barack Obama, Hussein Obama, that was actively deporting people. In 2016, CNN did a whole puff piece on it. Yeah, we're getting rid of them. And these guys are just so courageous and they're taking their lives in their hands. Our wonderful ICE officers. And now you're equating them with Nazi Germany. That's sickening. It's sickening because you don't want people finding out what they're going to find out, which is, I don't know, $70 billion is somehow missing. You guys just look the other way. Not okay. Not okay. By the way, market on fire today. Quick shout out to 76research.com. We had a big note on Davos yesterday. So if you want to go there and read more about it, I encourage you to do that. 76research.com. Go look at those individual portfolios too. But this guy, Newsom, Newscum, whatever you want to call him, he is Sparkle Beach Ken. Like Ken doll, I guess. And it's sort of, people are making the point that only Bessent could say this really, because Bessent, who's, by the way, our first openly, or just probably our first ever gay Treasury Secretary, and that's kind of a big deal, right? He gets up there at Davos of all places, and really, we're talking about stirring the pot. He had a few choice words for Sparkly Boy.
I think it's very, very ironic that Governor Newsom, who strikes me as Patrick Bateman meets Sparkle Beach Ken, may be the only Californian who knows less about economics than Kamala Harris. He's here this week with his billionaire sugar daddy, Alex Soros, and Davos is a perfect place for a man who, when everyone else was on lockdown, when he was having people arrested for going to church, he was having $1,000 a night meals at the French Laundry, and I'm sure the California people won't forget that. My message to Governor Newsom is the Trump administration is coming to California. We are going to crack down on waste, fraud, and abuse. Shame on him. He is too smug, too self-absorbed, and too economically illiterate to know anything.
Thank you very much. He is economically illiterate. In fact, he pointed out that he's the most economically illiterate politician he can really think of in California, outside of Kamala Harris, who, by the way, just somehow bought an $8 million Malibu beach property. Gavin's thinking Malibu Beach is in his future too. Why not? He's Sparkle Beach Ken. Sparkle Beach Ken, that's a reference, actually. I had to look that up, to an actual doll. 1995, Mattel came out with Sparkle Beach Barbie. This is Sparkle Beach Ken. I'll tell you, though, this guy's following the money, and the Treasury Secretary has every intention of recovering it. So, California, watch out. Sparkle Beach Ken doll. Gavin, watch out. He's serious. You know who else is serious? That would be Brendan Carr over at the FCC. Guess what? The View really is in big trouble this time. I was listening to some of the sound that they have had on the show this week, and it's like ratchet up, right? Like even for them, because it's getting more and more and more and more aggressive. And yesterday, I played some of this sound for you. The day before, actually, they had Pam Grier, who is a black actress on, and Pam talked about growing up in 1945. She was born in 1945, growing up in the 50s and the 60s in Ohio, and how her mother had to actually have her avoid certain trees on their way home when they were walking home, because certain trees actually, I'll just say it. I mean, it's unfortunate to even talk about it. It turns out it can't possibly be true because she's talking about lynchings. It couldn't be true because I did a deep dive on this, and the last sort of official time this ever happened in Ohio was 1911. There were some unofficial reports of 1930, and what Pam Grier, I mean, I hate to doubt her memory, she was born in 1945, that really doesn't add up. And nobody on the show, I'm not going to play it for you because it's sort of morbid, but nobody on the show even bothered to push back in any way, shape, or form. They just lapped it up and they took it as a given. And so that to me was sort of the first example of, wow, the show just, they had Ma'am Dami on the other day, they had Jasmine Crockett. Now this woman, it's constant, okay? It's constant. It's just bash Trump, bash Trump, bash Trump, bash the GOP, bash him again. And after a while, you're like, okay, I can't take them seriously. But the reality is, believe it or not, people, I mean, the ratings are down, but some still actually watch this. And so they're trying to seed themselves into popular culture and into the minds of people, which is sort of a terrifying view of the world. And then I was like, gosh, I think the FCC should really do something. Well, sure enough, late yesterday, Brendan Carr came forward with a letter, and he made it really clear that they've got to actually invoke the equal time rules. I think that they got a heads up. And that is why on yesterday's program, they got this little jab in. Whoopi Goldberg in all her insanity.
I'm not sure.
I don't know if we've moved on to another piece. Amendment.
Right, it's time.
25th Amendment is time. It's time.
To that point, Whoopi, you would be in a lot of company. You believe at this point that the President of the United States may not have his full faculties?
I felt that before now.
Yeah, but the cherry on the cake was yesterday.
Well, no, there's been a lot of cherries on the cake. There have been several. The cherries on this cake are enormous.
Yeah.
There are
It's
so
a cherry
many.
tree.
There are the lines in the sand.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like a stamp. There's so many lines in the sand.
Yeah. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? In other words, she's saying, okay, we got to do the 25th Amendment now. Why? Because he's about to give her the 25th Amendment. And I don't mean that quite literally. What I am telling you is that the FCC and the Trump administration is actually trying to preserve these shows in some way, shape, or form because they do want them to have both sides. And so if the View is just going to get on there and bash, you know what? You're going to have to give her the hook. You just are. Or, you put another person on the couch. Well, I don't know. You're going to have to fire some of these people, right? Because you've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, who's your conservative? I guess that would be the woman who's about to go out on maternity leave that I think they're going to replace with, wait for it, MTG. But she really doesn't count as a MAGA conservative in any way, shape, or form. They're going to try and say, oh, well, we've got a conservative there. Look, we got MTG. And yet, Joy Behar and Sonny and the Ana Navarro lady, all of these Whoopi Goldberg, it's sort of like they don't have a myriad of different opinions. There's no diversification of thought there. And frankly, it's become so idiotic that you can't quite take them seriously. Think about what Whoopi says next. I'm going to show you some more on the 25th Amendment. And then she goes on to say she wants the whole cabinet gone. Of course, she forgets about the fact that you actually need the cabinet, the vice president, and the backing of the cabinet in order to invoke the 25th Amendment. I mean, this woman is actually calling for a kind of fascism herself.
A 2-hour press conference about I don't know what.
Yeah.
Look. He is sitting in a position that is uncomfortable to me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm uncomfortable with him as president.
A lot of people
just remember the 25th.
Of course you're uncomfortable with him, Whoopi, because he's telling your bosses that your show can't be on the air like this, that they actually need to give equal time. And what is the equal time rule? It is something that actually very specifically says if you're going to have one point of view on or one politician on, like a Mamdani, like a Jasmine Crockett, like a, whoever your latest and greatest is today, you're going to have to make sure that you put another person from the other side on for the same amount of time. That's how it works. And by the way, nobody's been enforcing this for a variety of reasons. They've just said, well, we don't really care, we're not going to bother with this. And by the way, back when they stopped caring, a lot of these shows weren't like this. This is all new. This is all since Donald Trump came to office.
Amendment requires the cabinet around him to act.
But we're talking to them.
Well, I know, but I'm just as a dose of reality, his cabinet is squarely with him.
Yes.
Though I do think...
And it's time for them to go, too.
Though I do... Well, and this is where...
Okay, so she's trying to actually talk some sense, and she's trying to actually have some sort of normalcy there, but Whoopi doesn't want that, right? Whoopi would cause... she's like, goodness sakes, she's like another Maduro or another Chavez. Just throw out all the rules, throw them all out, because I want my way. And that's what she's pushing for. Who else really wants his way? Jimmy Kimmel, who has gone from a comedian, if he ever was one, I'm not saying he was ever funny, I've never found him funny. He's supposed to be a comedian, but he's turned it into a political show, which really can go to MSNBC. Listen, they need content over there. They only got Rachel once a week. Jimmy, I'm thinking you can team up, because that is a place where you are free to do this shtick all day long. But you can't do it over FCC, publicly controlled airwaves. There is a distinction. Cable's different. YouTube's different. We're streaming over here. I can say whatever I want. Within reason, right? But I can. And I can have a viewpoint. But on comedic late night TV, because of the equal time rules, if you're going to have a politician on that's just going to bash, Jimmy, you got to have the other side. Yeah, this is all we hear constantly.
Say nothing at all. And those days are gone. Maybe not forever, hopefully not forever, but for now they're gone. We now have the full force of the White House and the commentators who have decided that their job is to support anything and everything their leader says and does, trying to convince us that a mom who just dropped her 6-year-old off at school was part of a left-wing terror effort.
The deadly incident that took place in Minnesota yesterday occurred as a result of a larger, sinister left-wing movement.
These vehicle rammings are domestic acts of terrorism?
I don't want to play the rest of him. He just basically goes on to bash the administration and all of them. Well, what has happened is that they're putting back in place what's known as the equal time rule, and they have the ability to enforce this. Let me see if I can get this article up on the screen for you, because NBC actually reported on it, and it was funny because you know who? Brendan Carr actually tweeted it out. Let me see if this is going to work. We're running into some technical difficulties here, but okay. Well, anyway, late night and daytime talk show hosts must offer equal time for candidate interviews. The FCC says that is the headline coming to you courtesy of NBC News. But basically, again, just to explain this out for you, broadcasters must provide equal time to opposing political candidates. You can't have one side on and never give any kind of time or airwaves to the other side. And so this applies to these particular shows like The View and like Jimmy Kimmel. And they actually specifically called out these shows. These are the targeted programs, okay? It's The View, it's Jimmy Kimmel Live, it's The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, it's Late Night with Seth Meyers, and similar formatted shows. The FCC notes that these are often entertainment-oriented, right, and may not automatically qualify as bona fide newscasts, but they do have very partisan bents, and that's what has to stop. If you're going to give partisan on one side, you got to offer the other side, again, because you're on FCC-controlled airwaves. Back when it was Johnny Carson, they weren't doing this. And back when Meredith Vieira was on The View, they weren't doing this. Interestingly, do you know the news division of ABC? ABC News is actually the producer of The View. That's because Barbara Walters had the idea, and she went to her news division bosses and presented it, and they said, great. And that was why it to this day is governed by the news part of the business. And so Brendan Carr is saying, okay, enough. I am making sure that you are on notice that I am in charge here. And for years, I'll just read you his tweet. He said, for years, legacy TV networks assume that their late night and daytime talk shows qualify as bona fide news programs, even when moderated or motivated by purely partisan political purposes. And you know that, I know that, it is purely partisan. Today, the FCC reminded them of their obligation to provide all candidates with equal opportunities. So that is why, ladies and gentlemen, they were flipping out so badly. That is why they don't know what to do on The View. That is why they had to get that little dig in there about the 25th Amendment, and they're going to try and run with that because they think he's trying to 25th them. And he may be. Right? Couldn't happen to a nicer team of people now, could it? All right, the other big story I want to talk to you about today is what happened? Why is our camera going out? What's going on here, ladies and gentlemen? Hope they're trying not to 25th me. I want to go to Brendan Gill, because Brendan Gill just torpedoed Jack Smith today on Capitol Hill. This is like must-see TV. I don't always show you the full clip, but you got to see every stinking second of this one because Brandon was on fire. If you don't know him, Brendan Gill is a representative, young representative from Texas. Everybody says he looks like Superman. He's a wonderful guy. He's married to a wonderful girl who happens to be Dinesh D'Souza's daughter. So, some good genes there, I would say. Anyway, Brendan Gill asked a lot of questions of Jack Smith, specifically as it related to the, shall we call it wiretapping? They might get mad if we say wiretapping. Yeah, they didn't like it when it was referred to as wiretapping. I think I can say spying. they were spying on 8 sitting U.S. senators. That's a fair word, because they were gathering the metadata on their phones. It's actually referred specifically as tolling the phones. They were gathering all the metadata to figure out, okay, Ted Cruz, who's Ted Cruz talking to? Who's Marsha Blackburn talking to? And then they would try and figure out the location, how long they were talking, and then they were trying to map out all the people they were talking to. And this was all allegedly for the J6 investigation. It was for the J6 investigation. I don't need to say allegedly. But Jack Smith took the data and he ran with it. And he just kept trying to collect all this until, like, as one phone company was like, no, you're not doing it. But this is outrageous. I mean, this is big government gone wild, ladies and gentlemen, when they are going after the other side just because they don't like the other side. You got to raise an eyebrow. Brandon Gill really just stealing the show on this one. I want to show you this clip. Let's watch it together.
Yes, sir, we did.
Yes, you did. And the subpoena covered the time period between November 2020 and January 2021. Is that right?
I'm sorry, sir. Could you say that again?
We're not going to delay like this. The subpoena covered the time period between November of 2020 and January 2021. How many days after Kevin McCarthy was sworn in as Speaker did you subpoena his records?
I don't recall, but those two things had nothing to do with one.
It was 16 days after becoming the highest ranking Republican in the House of Representatives. You subpoenaed his toll records. Do you agree that that might reasonably be considered a violation of the speech or debate clause?
I do not, and I want to be clear that the toll records...
You were collecting months' worth of phone data on the Republican Speaker of the House, the leader of the opposition, right after he got sworn in as Speaker, all around the time of a major vote. That sounds like a flagrant violation of the speech or debate clause to me, and I think most people agree with me. And Speaker McCarthy had no recourse, did he? Because you issued a non-disclosure order ensuring that neither he nor any of the American people knew about these subpoenas. Is that right?
The toll record, the non-content toll record subpoenas, we did secure non-disclosure orders for those subpoenas.
You did, and let me ask you, Mr. Smith, at the time you secured those non-disclosure orders, was Speaker McCarthy a flight risk?
The non-disclosure order was based on concerns about...
Was Speaker McCarthy a flight risk?
He was not.
He was not. Then why did your non-disclosure order refer to him as a flight risk? It says right here, the court finds reasonable grounds to believe that such disclosure will result in flight from prosecution.
Sir, when securing a non-disclosure order, the risks don't have to be associated.
You think that the Speaker of the House is a flight risk?
The question?
No, this is not your time.
Isn't that amazing? They're like they're trying to jump in. You get a Democrat jumping in.
My time. You think the Speaker of the House is a flight risk? You think he's going to hop on a plane and leave the country?
Incredible, right?
No, what I was trying to explain is with respect to a non-disclosure order, the risks aren't necessarily associated with the subscriber to the phone. They're the risks to the investigation.
I think that you were using, this was clearly in reference to Speaker McCarthy, and you were using clearly false information to secure a non-disclosure order to hide from Speaker McCarthy and from the American people the fact that you were spying on his toll records. But I've got more, so let's move on. In May of 2020.
Wow. Okay. Toll records again. That's spying. Okay. That they're gathering all the metadata on the phone so that they can keep an eye on them.
You also issued subpoenas for toll records of 9 U.S. senators and an additional representative. Is that right?
In May of 23, we did issue...
You did, and there were non-disclosure orders in conjunction with those subpoenas as well, right?
That's correct, consistent with department policy and the law.
So again, nobody would know what you were doing. The senators would, and the representatives would, and the American people wouldn't know what you were doing. Is that right?
The toll records that we secured and the non-disclosure orders were consistent with policy and consistent.
And you knew whenever you were doing that there was a risk you were violating the speech or debate clause. Is that right?
The toll record subpoenas that we secured were with the concurrence of the public integrity.
Your own analysis says that you knew there was a risk you were violating the speech or debate clause. I have it right here. This is an email from John Keller, Public Integrity Section, to your team. As you are aware, quote, as you are aware, there is some litigation risk regarding whether compelled disclosure of toll records of a member's legislative calls violates the speech or debate clause in the D.C. Circuit. That's from your own analysis right there. Boom! So you did know, didn't you?
Sir, with respect to the item you just put up on the screen, the last sentence states...
we're going to get to the last sentence.
Okay.
We're going to get to the last sentence. And you cite case law in here, quote, the bar on compelled disclosure is absolute. Is that right? Or do you think that you didn't have to abide by that precedent?
To be clear, this statement is not from my office. This is the statement of public
This is your justification for those subpoenas and NDOs that you ordered. This was part of your analysis. It's a cursory analysis. I think it's worth noting. But let's get to that last sentence then. Quote, given my understanding of the low likelihood that any of the members listed below would be charged, the litigation risk should be minimal here. In other words, you're using a novel legal theory, which you knew was novel, has never been tested by any court. You're not charging any of these members. Nobody's going to know about it because you issued NDOs. Nobody's going to sue about it, so sue this. So who cares? We're going to do it anyways. I mean, you walked all over the Constitution throughout this entire process. Mr. Chairman,
the gentleman's time's
spying on members of Congress, and you know it. It's absolutely disgraceful.
Wow.
Gentlemen,
Wow. Okay. That was a really, really, really good showdown on Capitol Hill today. I just like it when we have smart people who come prepared. And you need to be prepared going up against Alexa Jack Smith. So that was just a wonderful example of what a great, smart lawmaker can do. And Jack Smith is unraveling, and he's going to unravel, and the whole thing is going to come out. What happened was unthinkable. And they're still trying to do it. They don't want fairness. They want a rigged game. And we're tired of it. We want a great country, a strong country, and a fair country. And we're getting it. I'm telling you, it's happening, you guys. It's good to have all of you here. Thank you so much for joining me, as always, on the Trish Regan Show. I'm back live again tomorrow. Hey, check out Spotify. See you soon.